picked this particular wine because, again, I said you were a wine novice, so I thought this would be a good wine for you to start with.
Okay.
So why don't you go ahead and take a sip and tell me what you think.
Okay. It is a little sweet. I like that.
It's got a hint of sweetness, not overly sweet, not overly, I definitely wouldn't label this as a sweet wine, but I would label it as an off-dry, fruity wine is how I would tell a customer about this wine.
And it's kind of smooth. Some wines I've had in the past kind of just are kind of tart on my tongue.
Right, and they'll leave an aftertaste, and they'll leave, yes, okay. And this, yeah, exactly. This is very, very clean. They say clean and crisp.
Okay.
When you don't have a whole bunch lingering on after you've swallowed, that's called a crisp finish or a clean finish.
Okay.
So
I like
this wine, again, 100% Johannesburg Riesling is the grape.
Okay.
It is stainless steel fermented. Okay, meaning what that means is that in the process of making the wine, they're basically using stainless steel tanks that impart very little flavor, they impart actually no flavor into the wine itself.
Is that different than being in a barrel?
Yes,
okay.
It is. So in a barrel, some wines, if a wine is fermented in the barrel, that would end up being something like a Chardonnay, for example, would have some barrel fermentation. That, during that fermentation process, it actually draws a lot of the flavor from the wood itself. It gets a flavor profile out of the wood.
Okay.
So this also probably has very little age on it. This is a wine that is probably released within a year of the vintage. Okay, meant to be drunk right away, not an aging wine at all.
Okay.
Meant to be put in your fridge, opened up, and consumed over 2 days. You know, if you open it, I don't like pushing my wines past more than 2 days after you've opened them.
Okay.
So you tend to really lose a lot of flavor that way. So there are some wine preserving systems out there that help with that, but most of the ones that you would have in the home that you could afford and have in the home do a fair job, but they're only going to extend the life of your wine for maybe another 2 to 3 days at most. Okay. So you're enjoying this?
Yes, I actually like it.
What would you pair this, or what would you think about eating with this?
Well, because it's sweet, I don't know, I'm going to say fish.
Okay, could go fine with fish. Okay, this is a very versatile wine that would be fine. This would be a great wine if you were having fish. You could open it up. It'd be fine with a salad, which is often, if somebody's just having a salad, this is a great wine for that. Salads can sometimes be, depending on what's in the salad, of course, maybe if it's a big flavorful salad with a whole bunch of blue cheese and a lot of meat and things, you can go with something a little heavier like a Pinot Noir, which is red. But with a standard salad, something like that, this would go great. It's great almost by itself or with appetizers. It's a great wine that you can pour at the beginning of the evening to get people started.
Right.
They can walk around, they can nibble, you know, and have this wine, and it really goes with a lot of things.
So this is really a safe bet.
It is a very safe bet. Also, one of the things I really like about Rieslings and also Gewürztraminers, which is another type of grape similar to a Riesling, is that they go great with spicy food. So if you were having some spicy Chinese, for example, this would be the perfect wine to pair with that.
Do you think because it kind of cuts that?
It does. It can cut through, and it will stay. It'll sort of squash the spiciness in your mouth a little bit, and so it would be a great wine for that.
Well, it looks like we have a question. You want to take a question,
Sure.
Jeff?
Go ahead.
So we have a question from Jack from Torrance. He says that he has a 1978 red Zinfandel,
Okay.
and he wants to know what's the best way to keep it up, and will it still taste good even after now?
I unfortunately, was it Jack? Was that his name?
Jack, yeah.
Unfortunately, Jack, I think your wine is past its prime.
Oh no.
Zinfandels they can age for a while, but I certainly would not push them into what we are looking at, 30 years now almost.
Yeah.
So 78 happened to be a very good year in Napa Valley, as a matter of fact. But I would say that wine is probably not going to be very good.
Yikes. Okay, Jack. Well, sorry about that, and thank you so much for your question, and thanks for being in the mix. So, We've tasted this, Jeff, and what I've seen on TV shows or movies, people always eat something like an apple or a cracker afterwards. Why is that?
Crackers are very good, apples too are very good. You want to cleanse the palate between your wines, because you really want to get the flavor of the wine you just tasted out, so that you can move on to the next one and get a true flavor profile of the next wine that you're gonna be sampling. One of the things I found that is really, really good is raw almonds. Raw almonds do an excellent job of cleansing your palate.
Really?
Really refreshes. It really refreshes that. So I use that when we do little wine tastings at home. I'll often just bring out a little bit of almonds and lay them out.
Okay, good to know. So I didn't need to do this big old spread. I
That's
could
all
have
right.
some almonds.
We'll get to share. We'll have a little. So you got crackers on. The crackers work well too, and a very mild cracker. You don't want to. You know, Ritz is not the way. You have water crackers here, which are perfect for that purpose.
All right, so water crackers or raw almonds.
Raw almonds are
Awesome.
two of the best things. Yeah, you can use to cleanse your palate.
Okay, so I guess I will finish this.
Or you can put it aside and we can have it a little bit later too. Enjoy it.
All right. So so where are some of the best wines coming from? I know France, obviously, but
Good question. There are great wines coming from all over the world right now. California, of course, makes some exceptional wines. We make wines in California that top the rest of the world. France probably has the most expensive wines come from France, but also some great bargains you can find coming from France, which is one of the wines we're actually going to be tasting next. And then what I like is I'm really enjoying Southern Hemisphere wines that are coming out of Chile, Argentina, Australia, and South Africa.
Are those some of the new trends that are happening?
What we're finding is that if you've noticed, if you watch wine prices, they have steadily escalated. French wines are very expensive, can be very expensive, and that also has to do with the conversion rate between the euro and the American dollar. All the new wineries that are being put into California, right now an acre of land in Napa Valley costs well over $1 million to be planted, to put the plant to buy, and then even more if you buy without grapes on it, to plant it. The cost of planting that vineyard is very expensive. So all those things have really driven the price up. Henceforth, when you go to places like Argentina, South Africa, the land values and things, you can still get a reasonable price where you can get some very, very nice wines at a much better bargain.
Now I heard you mention earlier, you said something about Johannesburg, and I was like, okay, that's South Africa. So
I do not. That's just the name of the Johannesburg Riesling. Is just the name of the grape. I do not believe it has any affiliation with Johannesburg, South Africa.
Okay, all right. So wow, so there's a lot of wineries all over the country, northern California.
Napa Valley, Sonoma, Mendocino are great, and certain regions are known for certain types of wine. I actually live in a wine region. I live up in Santa Barbara County.
Right.
So the wines that come out of Santa Barbara County, for example, what they're known for are their Pinot Noirs and their Chardonnays primarily. If anybody's seen Sideways,
yes,
that's all took place all right around my house. And so, and they were big on the Pinots was their thing. But what makes that particular area good for that particular grape is the climate. You have these cooler mornings where you get some fog, and so those Pinot Noirs and Chardonnays do well with a cooler morning and a warmer afternoon. Okay, grapes like Cabernet, for example, and Zinfandel don't necessarily work so well in that type of environment. So what you want there is you want a much hotter, drier climate, such as someplace like Paso Robles, for example, which is in San Luis County and about 60 miles north of Santa Barbara. So up there you get a much drier, longer, a lot more heat during the day, so you get a different flavor profile. That's much better for those larger grapes. Napa Valley tends to be the same, very, very good for Cabernet Merlot, those type of grapes.
Okay, awesome. Well, we are doing some wine tasting. If you're just joining us, I'm Donna Sam. You're in the mix where the world is listening here on Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to the show. And we are learning about wines. I'm so excited because, like I said, I've tasted some wines in the past and it really just didn't do anything for me. And I guess I really didn't have an appreciation or really know the ABCs of wine tasting. So we are doing that today with wine distributor Mr. Jeff. Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm Donna Sam. You're in the mix where the world is listening here on Blog Talk Radio. And my guest today is wine distributor Jeff First. Jeff, thank you so much for being here today and bringing the wines and giving us an education on the art of wine drinking, purchasing, storing, and anything else that somebody wants to know. So I really appreciate this. So let's see, I guess we're going to move on to our second glass. We just finished a Riesling. Riesling. A Riesling. And it was delicious, nice and fruity, light. And you were saying that Rieslings are low in alcohol.
Tend to be lower in alcohol.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Wines that tend to be high in alcohol, Zinfandels, for example, red Zinfandels can be very high in alcohol. And also Cabernets you can get up there as well. The others, the whites, tend to stay in that 12 to 13% range. That means Chardonnays, this Viognier that we're about to taste in just a little bit.
Okay.
So, one thing I did want to mention, going back to the Riesling real quick, was that Washington State is a very well-known region for, we were talking about what wines work well in what regions. Washington State is very good for Rieslings. They produce, that was probably the first grape that put them on the map, was the Riesling and the wine, those wines. And Washington, if you look, well, their latitude is pretty much essentially the same as northern France. So that's why that area works well for that grape. And most of these grapes are grown more to the eastern side, it's a little drier side of Washington, than it is on the west coast, where it tends to be like there's a shadow desert that does that. So too much rain like you would get on the peninsula around Seattle area would not work well for the grapes. You need an area that gets rain but also has dry days as well. So that's why you need to go to the eastern side of Washington more.
So I want to apologize to everybody if you hear me eating. I am eating my cracker to cleanse my palate for the next wine. And you know, Jeff, I just watched a movie. I've seen it a couple of times. I really like it, Bottle Shock. And how long, in that movie, I forgot the year that it took place, like 76 or something like that, where California won in the wine tasting in France. How long has California wines really been holding their own, or standing up to French wines?
Well, I haven't seen the movie, but I'm well aware of the story. I'm well aware of the story. And that was probably when that wine was put into competition against the French wines, the best French wines in the world, and won the competition. That really was the turning point when everybody's eyes started to open California wine. Now, saying that, there were some innovators in the industry who certainly knew that California was the right climate, the right area for growing wine, and were doing things right from the early 1960s.
Okay.
So, and that would be names like Mondavi. Christian Brothers actually had a winery going at that time.
Right, I'm familiar with that name.
Krug, Mondavi, Krug, those were some of the ones that really started the wine industry.
Okay.
Up there.
Awesome. Okay, so are we ready for our next glass?
We're moving to France.
Okay.
So what I brought a French Viognier. Now, a lot of people may not be familiar with Viognier. The way I like to describe it for those that are familiar with Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc is that, to me, Viognier kind of falls in between those two. In that Chardonnay is a much richer wine in the mouth, tends to be a little heavier to the feel in your mouth, the wine itself. And then a Sauvignon Blanc can be crisp, not quite as sweet as like when we just had the Rieslings. It doesn't have that, doesn't necessarily have that perfumey, flowery nose. It has, it can have some subtleness in the nose that will remind you maybe of hay, something along those lines. And Sauvignon Blanc, and those are traditional sort of ways that people describe that particular wine. So this, to me, falls right in between, like I said, between Chardonnay and between Sauvignon Blanc.
All right.
This is an excellent, excellent food wine.
And I should do this.
Yes, you should swirl it a little in the glass to get the air moving. And when we get to reds, we'll talk about the importance of opening reds a little bit ahead of time and what you should do with red wines. And a little bit of red determines on how old or the type of wine, but we'll get to that when we move to the red wine.
Now, smelling this, it's a little bit more robust than the Riesling that we just did.
you're probably going to feel this is a lot. This is a much drier wine. Probably you don't. I would imagine you're not going to like this one as much as you like the last one.
Right. And I could feel that that dryness immediately.
Now this wine has a good amount of acid in it, and it's a balance. What I like to say is it's got a balance between the acid and the fruit. When you have a wine that's higher in acid, what you really want is you want a good food dish to go with it. When you have this with something like maybe a chicken with cream sauce, something like that, this would go excellent with most seafood, most hearty seafoods. It can stand up to all different sauces. The type of things that would not necessarily pair this with, I wouldn't want to drink this with a big hearty Italian meal, for example. I think those would overpower the wine. That type of meal would overpower the wine here. So this is more of that middle of the road. A lot of chicken, a lot of white sauces, those sorts of things. Pork, it would be fine with sort of a pork dish.
And what is this called again, Jeff?
Viognier.
Viognier.